I want to talk to you of a very important matter. Your prayer shawl. Why? Because in the closing verses of this week's Torah portion is the injunction that connects us to the talit. The talit is called the talit, prayer shawl, and that we are supposed to wear the talit. So I wanted to talk to you about it. There's going to be a show and tell at the closing part of my 3-hour presentation. Is going to be a show and tell. So I'm hoping that we can share one talit per 4 people, because all we need is a corner of the prayer shawl. So hopefully this can be arranged and we can have people to share. I'm going to tell you why I've told you about this. In the Torah, in the closing verses of our weekly Torah portion, our parasha, in the book of Numbers, it says, and I quote, although I quote in English, "The Eternal One said to Moses, 'Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a blue thread to the fringes at each corner. That shall be your fringes. Look at it. And as you look at it, recall all the commandments of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, and observe them, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urges.'" And then it closes with, "Leman tizkeru ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai ve'item kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem." Emet. It's the end of the Ve'ahavta for us. Actually, the full Ve'ahavta will have all of the verses here. The last 2 that I just chanted, it says that you might become aware, engage in my spiritual practices, and be bound in holiness to the one expressing as you. I am the Holy One who manifests as all that is, the one who brings you forth from the place of enslavement to be for you God. I am the Holy One who manifests as all that is. And that's where we get to wear the talit from. Now, I always start with history. I like to start with the historical part of why we got to wear this talit. Historically, it was just something people wore. We didn't dress the way we dress today. So you can imagine our ancestors, wearing kind of a toga-like, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, or jalabia, the jalaba from the very Middle Eastern kind of dress, right? And everybody wore this shawl. It was a fashion statement. You wore a shawl as part of your dress. Mostly women would do that, but it was like all across both genders, everybody wore a shawl. It was kind of the thing of the day. And it lasted, I guess, for generations, because at some point, those who decided to, find some sacred things for people to wear said, you know what, we're going to make the shawl that everybody's wearing, that has been in fashion for decades now, we're going to make that into a sacred garment. Everybody's already wearing it. Shouldn't be and people were wearing it, decorated it. It was full of colors. But they also had the fringes. They had the tassels because it was pretty. People love to have the tassels. And so they said, we're going to keep just 4, and we're going to put them at the corners of your shawl. And it simply needs to be a rectangle. And you're going to put them, it's like a little bit of Jewish macrame right here. and you're going to put them on all four corners of your rectangle. That's it. And I mean, you read from the verses, there was really no other injunction to that. It was not supposed to be anything more than that. And this part, what's called the atara, so some prayer shawl have something like that. Some have another talit that is just a blank reinforcement. It's kind of a reinforcement. It weighs more on your shoulders, so the talit, the prayer shawl, stays a little more. And some have even the blessing for the talit. You have to say a blessing before wearing it. But that's not mandatory. That's just for decor. That's just to make it nicer. So you could grab any rectangular piece of cloth. You're going to need to reinforce the corners so you can see if you have a talit. The corners are reinforced so that the thread doesn't alter the hole in the middle. It's also really good for a chuppah. So I use my prayer shawl, not this one, a bigger one. For chuppah, I have freestanding poles with a hook that I got from Home Depot that I screwed in. You know those hooks that you screw in for your clothes and stuff in the wall? And I screwed those at the end of the pole. It's like a cue, billiard cue kind of thing. I screwed those, and then when I have a wedding, I thread the hook in the little hole, and then I got 4 poles, and you have a chuppah. A chuppah is a canopy under which people get married in Jewish tradition. So your talit can also serve as a chuppah, actually. So you do that. But originally, that was really just fashion. And then the rabbis, or the biblical author in this case, made it into sacred garments. I believe, so they said that you have to have, so that's why we wear it kind of like this, 2 of the fringes in the front and 2 in the back, right? But I'm sure that at the time, you kind of wore it probably like this, more like a poncho kind of thing, like that. That was your, I'm not doing it fashionably enough, but you can imagine. And you had your 2 in the front and your 2 in the back. I demonstrate. That was it. And I'm sure for the longest time, their pottery, we see people, ancient pottery, where you can see people wearing it. And for the longest time, it was probably just worn like this, before it evolved into what we know it to be today, and how we specifically wear it today. Now, the injunction, as you saw, because I kind of insisted, is to be able to look at the fringes themselves. And obviously there was real reason for that, is that as we look at them, we are reminded of the holiness, of the sacredness, and that we do not get distracted by our evil eyes, lustful urges. Right? So it was a way to keep yourself in check and remember that you're wearing a sacred vestment, and you can see the fringes. I'll talk about the fringes in details in a moment, but that was really why you wanted to do that, to keep yourself grounded and centered and not lost in the lustful mind of yourself. Nowadays, there are different prayer shawls, so if you follow the injunction, you're really supposed to wear your prayer shawl all the time. And maybe it worked when it was a fashion statement and you wore it like that scarf the way I wore it, but that is no longer what we do. And so at some point, we had to decide that it was too dangerous for us Jews to walk around with our prayer shawl on our shoulders. Some of you do the Yom Kippur walk with me and are brave enough to keep your prayer shawl on, might feel a little bit of an unease to walk around Green Lake and wearing it. And people look at us a little bit like, what is this kind of thing? And some of us might be a little bit scared. Well, imagine that has been the case for Jews for thousands of years. And so at some point, in the Middle Ages, when persecutions became more and more prominent, our rabbis decided that it would be safer to wear the talit, the prayer shawl, under our clothing. And that's where the tzitzit is the fringes, but it also usually is word for a talit as well. That's where they invented what's called the tzitzit katan, the small talit. And most Orthodox Jews, you see that anywhere you go where you find Orthodox Jews, they wear it under their button-down shirts, and usually just the fringes show up from their pants, like this usually. Why? Because the injunction is to look at them. So you can hide the talit, but you still have the fringes. And in the time of great persecution, they had a specific injunction from the rabbis who authorized them to keep the tzitzit, the fringes, inside their clothes as well, because there were times it was very, very dangerous. How did they do that? Well, it's very easy. They took a smaller version of this, right? And in the center, they made a hole. And it's through the hole that you basically put the talit on. It's like it became a very small poncho, basically, right? And you would wear it this way with the two fringes in the front and two fringes in the back, which is what you see Orthodox Jews wearing. And so it went back and forth with hiding the tzitzit and showing the tzitzit over the history of our people. Regularly, I'm checking my notes, of course. Regularly, you wear your prayer shawl, the bigger one, even if you have a smaller one. But if you forgot your talit and you already have the little one underneath your shirt, it's okay, it's kosher. But usually you wear your prayer shawl for morning services. Every morning service, you wear your prayer shawl. And you also wear it as service officiant, if you officiate at a holiday or a Shabbat. And you wear it all the time when you handle the Torah as well. Those are the main times where you wear a prayer shawl. Nowadays, it's been more democratized, and people wear it whenever they feel like they want to wear it, which is great. But I'm giving you what the tradition actually says. So those are the times where you wear your talit. There was a time, so we're kind of a branch of the Reform movement. Rabbi Ted, who founded the Bet Aleph Meditative Synagogue, was a Reform ordained rabbi from the early, well, not that early, maybe second or third generation of the Reform movement when he came to America. The Reform movement was born in Germany in the 1800s, and as German Jews came to America, they brought the Reform movement with them. It was in Germany and in England. That were really the only two places where there was any kind of Reform movement. There is nowhere else in the world. Not France, not Spain, not Italy, nowhere else. It was Germany and England, and because of that, he came to the US. And so really there are three countries that created or had a Reform movement, and obviously from there exported it to different countries. It's even in Israel now, in a small version of it. But the Reform movement, at the very beginning and for 100 years almost, banned its rabbis and anyone to wear the prayer shawl. Because the Reform movement wanted to prove to the nations where the Jews found themselves that the Jews would assimilate as best they can with the country where they resided, and so they would shed anything that looked too Jewish. And so they let go of the prayer shawl. It was forbidden. There was no Hebrew in the Reform synagogues at the beginning. There was only the local language. Again, for the Reform movement was very clear in its intention. You know that the last 20, 30 years that has changed drastically, and an evolution back to more traditional ways of being and worshiping have infiltrated the Reform movement now. Rabbis can even wear a kippah in the Reform movement now. That was something that Rabbi Ted was telling me when he started out as a young ordained rabbi. That was no go. That was no go. So the history of the talit, fluctuates depending where and when and what time. You heard in the blessing, in the phrase in the Torah verses, that you're supposed to have a blue thread. This is supposed to be a blue thread. Do you have a blue thread on yours? You don't have a blue thread on yours. Well, the reason for that, again, historically, we know that blue thread was dyed from a dye that is from a very rare and unique kind of snail that existed in the Middle East. And that was lost. We no longer know which kind of snail it was. And those who had the know-how on how to really kind of milk a snail to extract the dye, that knowledge was also lost in time. So we don't know how they got what snail it was and how they got the ink from it. I as a Frenchman, I've eaten a bunch of snail. I never had any blue on my tongue, but I don't know, maybe French snails are not kosher enough. I don't know. However, these days, some people are claiming that they found the snails, that they know how to milk them for their ink, and you start to see, specifically in some remote places in Israel, some people starting to sell and people starting to wear tzitzit that have a blue thread. That has not been made kosher by the head of the rabbinic the national and international rabbinic director, the head rabbi. It's not yet been proven to be kosher. So far, I'm gonna make a very bad. My kids will call it a dad joke, but so far the practice of the blue thread remains on the fringes of the Jewish community. I warned everybody. Come on. All right. All right, let's do more of a show and tell now. If you were to decide to make your own talit, you would order something like this. You would make the holes in the corners of your rectangle, and you would get something like this, which eventually might have yellowed in time, but becomes this. Simple. Very simple, nothing special about it. What I'm about to tell you actually is completely Kabbalistic, which I love. So all of these fringes are completely Kabbalistic, and you'll see why, because it's all from Gematria. So Gematria, for those of you who don't know, is a technique used by the Kabbalists, by the Jewish mystics, to interpret different passages of our texts at a mystical level. The way they do that, Gematria, is basically it's using each letter of the Hebrew alphabet as a number. So the Aleph, which is the A in Hebrew, is 1. The Bet is 2. Gimel is the C, which is 3. And then you get to 10. The 11th letter is 20. Why is the 11th letter 20 and not 11? Well, because you can make 11 with 10 and 1. So you can do 10 and 1 with a 10th. You can do 11 with a 10th and the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, 12 with a 10th and a second. So basically the 11th letter becomes 20, the 12th letter 30, and so on and so forth until you get to the hundreds, okay? And then you look at words, and you say, well, that word has these 5 letters, and if you add the number that each letter represents, you get to the number blah, blah, blah. And then you look in other parts of the Torah for the same number, and you say, well, that word has the same number as this word. They must mean that it's connected. Therefore, I'll give you an example for those of you who are here for the first time. The word for father in Hebrew is av, which is A, and B, A-B, ab, right? So that's the first and the second letter. That's number 3, 1 plus 2. So Av, for father, is the number 3. Keep that in mind. Okay? The word for mother is M. Aleph and Mem. Okay? Aleph is 1, Mem is 40. Everybody knew that. So 41. The word Yeled, which means child, is Yud Lamed Dalet, which is 10. The Yud is 10, Lamed is 30, and Dalet is 4. So that's what? 44. Yeled is 44. Father plus mother? 44. Okay? So that's how you play with gematria. 3 plus 41 is 44. Father and mother gives Yeled, child, 44. Yes? We're good? All right. Now, the word tzitzit, which is the fringe. Tzitzit, tzadi, t, is 90. I, the yud, is 10. Double that, tzi. All right? 90 and 10 plus 90 and 10, that's 200. And the tav at the end, the final t sound, is 400. So the word tzitzit is 600. Okay? Remember that? 600. Now, if you look at one of your tzitzit, how many threads are hanging down? No. Count again. Unless your talit is not kosher, and I'm sorry about that. 8, that's right. There should be 8 little threads. Okay? How many knots? 5, that's right. 8 threads and 5 knots. Yes? 13. 8 plus 5, 13. 600 plus 13 give us 613, which is the number of the mitzvot, of the commandments in the entire Jewish religion. 613 commandments. Right? And it says in the injunction, you remember, look at it and recall all the commandments of Yud-Heh-Vav. That's in the verse. So they created something which in gematria, as you look at it, because you're supposed to look at it, recalls the 613 commandments. It's right there. 5 knots, 8 threads. Nice. Or, well, there is more. Wait. So when you wrap the tzitzit, if you were to do it by yourself, you would have 7 of the same length, but one would be much longer, almost twice longer. And you use that one to do the little tying of the threads together in between the knots. Do you see that? So if you look at that, right? The first one, the first layer of the different tying arounds, I don't know what you would call this, between the first knot, which is the closest to the talit itself, right, and the second knot, you count, there should be 7 times that thread is wrapped around in between the 2 knots. All right? Are you guys double checking over there? You double checking that yours is kosher? If not, you can send it back to Amazon, you know? Okay, so 7, right? The next one, so between the second knot and the third, should have 8 times. You should have been wrapped around 8 times. The next one, oh man, I'm going to get you to, you have to count. You can count. I mean, you need really a magnifying glass, but it should be 8. The next one is longer, as you can tell, and that should be 11. All right, 11 wraps around for this one. And then the last one, it's even longer, and that should be 13. That should be 13. All right, so we have 7, 8, 11 and 13. Yes? So 7 plus 8 plus 11 is 26. 26 is the gematria for Yud He Vav He, which is the tetragrammaton, the unpronounceable name of God, YHVH. It's unpronounceable, so don't go with Yahweh, don't go with Yehovah. Those are just abominations. Those are just come from people who don't understand what unpronounceable means. So Yud He Vav He, what? The first three threadings, Yud He Vav He. 13, the last one. 13 is the gematria for Echad. Adonai Echad. So the tyings around between the knots spell Adonai Echad, which is the last two words of the Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, and it means the Eternal is one. The Eternal is one. So when you hold your talit, when you hold your tzitzit, there is incredible mystical meaning in each of them. The whole verse that I mentioned at the beginning is actually included in the longer version of the Ve'ahavta that we shorten here at Bet Aleph, and most Reform synagogues shorten it. But in more conservative synagogues, more Orthodox synagogues, they would have the entire little passage from the Book of Numbers. And so when I was growing up Orthodox, in the morning prayers, when you came to the Ve'ahavta, all of us would do this. You'll take the two in the front, and then you grab the ones in the back. So you would do that in advance because you know it's coming. And then you wrap them around your finger. And when they read the verse that I read you, which I'm going to read to you again, the Eternal One said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes." You see what I just did? Fringes on the corners of their garment throughout the ages. Let them attach a blue thread to the fringes at each corner. That shall be your fringes. Look at them and recall all the commandments of Yud He Vav He and observe them so that you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urges. So that's what you do. In the morning prayers, you bring all the fringes together and you kiss the fringes 3 times every morning during the morning service. All right, now grab a pen. There's a test. Oh, you can't write, it's Shabbat. Okay. Any question? Now you know everything you need to know about the talit. The last thing maybe I'm going to talk about is that this is also understood to be kanaf, the wing of the Shekhinah. Right? And there are injunctions that we find shelter under the wing of the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is the divine feminine indwelling presence all around us, above us, within us. And she covers us with her wing, which is the talit. So this is also the wing of the Shekhinah. So you see a lot of religious Jews, and we do that ourselves, mostly during the high holidays. You know, you cover yourself with your talit to feel yourself underneath the wing of the divine feminine, holding you and blessing you. Okay. Now we know everything we need to know. So we're going to get into a meditation space. And we're going to start with a song, Lev Tahor Brali Elohim. It means I was created with a pure heart. The Shekhinah, the indwelling feminine presence, created me, created each of us with a pure heart.